The war room on Viridian Prime was filled with the glow of failing star systems. Admiral Varric watched as another dot turned from blue to red on the holographic map. That was the Kalos system. Gone. 3 billion souls consumed by the swarm in less than a day. "How many ships did we lose?" Varric asked, his voice tired. 47, replied his tactical officer. "The swarm took minimal losses. They just keep coming." Varric closed his 4 eyes and tried to remember when hope had left him. Was it 2 months ago when the swarm first appeared? Or 3 weeks ago when they realized the creatures couldn't be reasoned with? The Vraltok swarm moved like a plague across space, eating everything in their path. Planets, ships, space stations, nothing survived their hunger. The Galactic Coalition had fought them at every turn. 12 species, united for 3,000 years of peace, now faced extinction together. Their combined fleets had been impressive once. Now they were scattered, broken, desperate. "We need reinforcements," someone said. Varric laughed bitterly. "From where? Every system is under attack. We're all that's left." Deep in the archives beneath the war room, Ambassador Hana sat surrounded by old texts. She was human, though no one in the Coalition knew what that meant anymore. Her kind had been gone so long they were just stories now. Myths. Legends that parents told children before bed. But Hana knew the truth. She had been born on Earth, in a system the Coalition had forgotten existed. She was here as an observer, nothing more. Her orders were clear: watch, record, but do not interfere. Humanity had remained hidden for 10,000 years. They had their reasons. She ran her fingers over an ancient tablet. The words were in Old Tal Shira, barely readable. "When the darkness comes," it said, "when all hope fades, the Earthborn will return. They who walked between stars when we crawled in caves. They who bleed red and fight like demons. They will come." Hana smiled sadly. If only they knew how close the truth was. 10,000 kilometers above Viridian Prime, hidden from all sensors, the UNS Indomitable floated in the darkness. Captain Taiho stood on the bridge, watching the Coalition fleet prepare for what they clearly thought was their last battle. His crew was silent, waiting for his order. "Status of the other ships?" Taiho asked. "All 7 vessels report ready, Captain," Commander Jiwan replied from her station. "The Valiant, the Defiant, the Horizon, the Phoenix, the Thunder, the Guardian, and the Sentinel, all weapons armed, all systems green." Taiho nodded. 8 ships. That's all Earth had sent. It would have to be enough. They had watched this war for weeks now, gathering intelligence, studying the enemy. The Vraltok swarm was unlike anything in the historical records. Biological ships that moved as one mind, consuming matter to fuel their endless reproduction. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command," the communications officer said. Taiho pressed the button. Admiral Park's face appeared. On the screen, the weight of Earth's decision visible in her expression. "Captain Taiho, this is Earth Command. Authorization code Delta 77 Alpha. You are cleared for intervention. I repeat, intervention is approved. Protect the Coalition. Show them we never abandoned them. Show them the legends are real." "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." The transmission ended. Taiho looked at his crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. First contact. The end of humanity's long silence. The day they stopped being ghosts and became real again. "Jiwan, signal all ships. Prepare to decloak on my mark." "Yes, sir." Below them, the swarm was gathering. Millions of bioships, each one a nightmare of organic weapons and armor. They moved like a swarm of insects, but each was the size of a building. The Coalition fleet, only 300 ships strong, formed a defensive line. It looked brave. It looked hopeless. In the war room, alarms began screaming. "The swarm is moving. They're advancing on Viridian Prime." Varric straightened his uniform. If this was the end, he would face it with dignity. All ships engage the enemy. Fight for every second, fight for every life. History will remember. "Admiral!" The sensor officer's voice cracked with shock. "I'm reading new contacts. 8. Signatures, massive power readings, they just appeared out of nowhere. Show me, Varric demanded. The holographic display changed. 8 new dots appeared, positioned perfectly between the Coalition fleet and the swarm. The energy readings were impossible. Each ship showed power levels that exceeded anything in Coalition technology. They're not swarm signatures, the officer said, confusion clear in his voice. The design is different. The energy pattern is. I've never seen anything like it. Varric felt something he hadn't felt in weeks. A small spark of curiosity. Open a channel. Demand identification. Sir, they're hailing us first. Audio and visual. The translation matrix is. It's having trouble. The language is ancient. Put it through. The main screen flickered. A man appeared, wearing a uniform that seemed both foreign and strangely familiar. He had dark hair and kind eyes, but there was steel beneath the kindness. Behind him, Varric could see a bridge that looked far more advanced than anything the Coalition had built. This is Captain Taiho of the United Nations starship Indomitable, the man said clearly. We are humanity. We've come to help. The war room went silent. Someone dropped a datapad. The sound echoed like thunder. Humanity? Varric whispered. That's impossible. They're just legends, stories. They can't be real. But on the screen, Captain Taiho smiled. We're very real, Admiral, and we're sorry it took us so long to come back. But we're here now. Let us help you fight. Ambassador Hana burst into the war room, her face bright with tears she couldn't hide. Admiral Varric, let me speak to them. I can verify their identity. Please. Varric looked at her, saw the hope in her eyes, and understood something that made his blood run cold. You knew. You've always known. You're one of them. Yes, Hana said simply. I am. And I promise you, Admiral, those legends you heard as a child, you didn't hear the half of it. On the sensors, the swarm was still advancing, but now 8 human ships moved to intercept. Their weapons powered up, and space itself seemed to shiver at the energy they commanded. The battle for Viridian Prime was about to begin. But for the first time in weeks, Admiral Varric felt something besides despair. He felt hope. Captain Taiho's voice came through the speakers again. Coalition fleet, this is the Indomitable. Hold your position. Let us show you what humans can do. Jiwan, give the order. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Commander Jiwan smiled and pressed the button. All ships, weapons free. Engage the swarm. For Earth. For the Coalition. For everyone who thinks we're just legends. The 8 human ships surged forward, and the legend became reality. Lieutenant Doyen checked his fighter's systems one last time. Everything showed green. The Raptor squadron was ready. 20 pilots all sitting in their cockpits aboard the Indomitable, waiting for the launch order. He could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. Raptor leader, this is Indomitable Control. You are cleared for launch. Show them what human pilots can do. Doyen grinned. Copy that, Control. Raptor squadron on me. Let's fly. The launch bay doors opened and space beckoned. 20 fighters shot out into the darkness like bullets from a gun. Doyen felt the familiar rush of acceleration, the way his fighter responded to his thoughts through the neural interface. Coalition pilots used buttons and screens. Humans used their minds. Ahead, the swarm ships were massive, bioconstructs that looked like they had been grown instead of built. Teeth and claws and organic weapons that dripped acid into space. There were thousands of them, moving in perfect coordination. Raptor squadron, break and attack. Remember your training. These things are fast, but we're faster. The fighters scattered, each pilot choosing their targets. Doyen locked onto a swarm bioship the size of a building and fired. His weapons were different from Coalition technology. Instead of energy beams, he fired missiles that could think for themselves. The first missile dodged 3 defensive shots, adjusted its path mid-flight, and punched through the bioship's armor. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. Splash 1, Doyen called out. These things bleed just fine. On the Indomitable's bridge, Commander Jiwan watched the battle unfold on her screens. The human ships had spread out, each one taking on dozens of swarm vessels. The Coalition fleet hung back, watching in stunned silence. Captain, Coalition Command is requesting tactical data, the communications officer said. Send them everything, Captain Taiho replied. Jiwan, how are our shields holding? At 90%. The swarm weapons are powerful, but they can't penetrate our barriers. Jiwan smiled. We've had 10,000 years to improve our technology. The coalition is about 300 years behind us. Let's not make them feel too bad about it. Target the large bio-construct on Vector 7. Fire Hellstorm missiles full spread. Jiwan entered the commands. From the indomitable 12 missiles launched, they looked small compared to the massive swarm ship they were aimed at. But as they flew, they split apart. 12 became 24. 24 became 48. Each missile found a weak point and struck simultaneously. The swarm bioconstruct came apart like a flower made of fire. In the war room, Admiral Varric couldn't believe what he was seeing. How is this possible? That bioconstruct took 3 of our battleships to destroy last week. They killed it with 1 volley. Ambassador Hana stood beside him, tears still on her face. Admiral, may I explain? Please, Varric said. I need to understand. Hana pulled up a holographic display. 10,000 years ago, humanity fought a war. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Nuclear weapons, biological plagues, AI weapons that turned on their creators. We lost 4 billion people. When the smoke cleared, we decided we needed to change. We went silent. We cut ourselves off from the galaxy and focused on healing, on improving, on making sure we would never be that destructive again. But you kept watching us, Varric said. Yes. We watched. We learned. We saw the coalition form, saw 12 species come together in peace. It gave us hope. We wanted to join you, but we weren't ready. We were still healing our own wounds. Dr. Unji, the human xenobiologist, stepped forward. She had been silent until now, working at a console. Admiral, I can prove we're who we say we are. May I access your historical archives? Why? Because your people visited Earth once, 20,000 years ago, before humans had even invented writing. Your ancestors came to our world as explorers. They left markers, genetic samples, archaeological evidence. Let me show you. Varric gave the authorization. Dr. Unji worked quickly, pulling up files that had been buried for millennia. Ancient records from Tal Shira exploration missions. Genetic markers that matched human DNA. Photographs of primitive humans taken from orbit. By the ancestors, Varric whispered. It's all true. The legends, the stories. You really did exist. We never stopped existing, Hana said gently. We just stepped back. But we always planned to return. We just needed to be ready, to be better than we were. On the tactical display, the battle was turning. The 8 human ships moved like dancers, each one covering the others. The coalition fleet, inspired by what they were seeing, pushed forward and began engaging the swarm with renewed energy. All coalition ships, this is Captain Taiho. We're uploading tactical data to your systems. Follow our targeting solutions and coordinate your fire with ours. Together we can break them. Engineer Nari stood in the Indomitable's engine room monitoring the power systems. The ship's reactor was running at 80% capacity. They could push it higher if needed. She had designed most of these systems herself, spent years perfecting them. The reactor used controlled fusion combined with zero-point energy extraction, technology that would seem like magic to the coalition. Engineering to bridge, reactor is stable. We can maintain this power output for 72 hours if needed. Acknowledged, Nari. Keep us flying. Nari smiled and patted the reactor housing. You hear that, baby? 72 hours. We can do this. Lieutenant Doyen pulled his fighter into a tight spiral, dodging fire from 3 swarm ships at once. His neural interface fed him data faster than his eyes could process it. Threat assessments, firing solutions, optimal escape vectors. He thought about turning left and his fighter turned. He thought about firing and his weapons fired. 2 more swarm ships exploded. The third tried to run, but Doyen was faster. He chased it down and ended it with a burst of plasma fire. Raptor leader, this is Raptor 7. I count over 200 enemy ships destroyed. They're starting to fall back. Doyen checked his sensors. It was true. The swarm was retreating. Not running, but pulling back to regroup. They had been hurt and they knew it. All Raptors form up on me. Let's get back to the barn and rearm. As the fighters returned to the Indomitable, Doyen looked at the coalition fleet. Their ships looked old and worn compared to human vessels, but they were still there, still fighting. These people had courage. They just needed a little help. On the bridge, Commander Jiwan was analyzing swarm movement patterns. Something bothered her. Captain, The swarm is regrouping, but they're forming a different pattern. They're concentrating their forces around that massive structure on bearing 347. I see it. What is that thing? Scanning now. Captain, that structure is generating massive amounts of bioelectric energy. I think it's their command node. The thing that coordinates all the swarm ships. Captain Tejo leaned forward in his chair. How big is it? Bigger than a moon. It's a living structure, constantly growing. If we destroy that, the swarm loses coordination. Can we reach it? G1 ran the calculations. Not with conventional flight. The swarm would tear us apart before we got close, but we could do a zero-distance warp jump. Appear right next to it, right inside their defenses. That's dangerous, yes, sir. But it might be our only chance to end this. Tejo looked at his crew. Young faces, brave faces. They had trained for this. They were ready. Contact the other human ships. Let them know our plan. Then contact Admiral Varric. It's time to turn this legend into a victory. In the war room, when Varric heard the plan, he felt ice in his veins. You're going to jump inside that thing? That's suicide! Maybe, Tejo said from the screen. But it's what humans do, Admiral. We take the risk so others don't have to. That's why the legends say we fight like demons. Because when it matters, when lives are on the line, we don't count the cost. We just fight. Varric looked at Ambassador Hana. She was smiling through new tears. This is who we are, Admiral. This is what the legends forgot to mention. We don't just fight well. We fight for others. Even when we barely know them. Then we fight with you, Varric said firmly. Coalition fleet, all ships. Coordinate with the human vessels. We're going to end this war today. The Indomitable's engines flared bright blue. The ship began to align for the impossible jump. Around it, 7 other human ships formed an escort. And behind them, 300 coalition ships moved into position. Captain Tejo stood and faced his crew. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to make history. We're about to prove that humanity never forgot the galaxy. We just needed time to become worthy of it. Now we're going to save it. Battle stations. Prepare for warp. The stars stretched. Reality bent. The Indomitable vanished from normal space, diving toward the heart of the swarm. The Indomitable emerged from warp space in a flash of blue light. One moment they were near Viridian Prime. The next they were deep inside enemy territory, surrounded by swarm bioships on all sides. The massive structure they called the Nexus loomed ahead, a living moon of teeth and organic technology. All weapons fire at will. Commander Jiwan shouted. The ship's guns opened up. Plasma cannons that could punch through a mountain. Railguns that fired slugs at a fraction of light speed. Missile pods that launched seeking death in all directions. The Indomitable wasn't just a ship. It was a moving fortress, and now it was inside the enemy's heart. Swarm ships swarmed toward them like angry insects. Thousands of them all converging on the single human vessel that had dared to appear in their midst. Shields at 70% and dropping. Someone called out. Captain Tejo gripped his chair. Nari, I need more power to shields. In the engine room, Nari was already moving. She redirected power from secondary systems, pushed the reactor to 90%, then 95%. Bridge, you've got maximum shields, but I can't hold this forever. We don't need forever. We just need to survive until the others arrive. On the Valiant, Commander Kyung watched as the Indomitable took fire from all sides. All ships execute jump sequence. Get to the Indomitable now. 7 more human ships vanished and reappeared around their flagship. They formed a defensive sphere, shields overlapping, weapons creating a wall of fire that the swarm couldn't cross. This is the Valiant. We're with you, Indomitable. Let's tear this thing apart. Lieutenant Doyen and his squadron had followed the capital ships through the warp. Now they flew through a maze of organic structures and enemy fire. His fighter twisted and turned, dodging bioacid and plasma bursts. He fired back, his missiles finding targets with deadly accuracy. Raptor Squadron, focus on those weapon clusters on the Nexus surface. Take them out. The fighters dove toward the massive structure. Up close, the Nexus was even more horrifying. It pulsed with life, covered in eyes and mouths and things that had no name, but it could still be heard. Doyen's missiles slammed into a cluster of organic cannons. They exploded in gouts of green fluid. Splash one weapon cluster. These things bleed just like their ships. Back at Viridian Prime, the Coalition fleet was holding the line against the remaining swarm forces. But everyone was watching the long-range sensors, watching the human ships fight alone deep in enemy space. They're taking heavy fire, the sensor officer reported. But they're holding. How is that possible? Admiral Varric had stopped questioning. He was simply watching in awe. Because the legends were right. They really do fight like demons. Ambassador Hana was working at a console coordinating with the human fleet. Admiral, they need support. Can you send ships? We can't warp jump that far. We don't have the technology. Then I'm uploading our warp coordinates to your navigation systems. Follow the path we create. It's risky, but it's possible. Varric made his decision in a heartbeat. All Coalition ships prepare to follow human warp signatures. We're joining the fight. On the Indomitable, Specialist Isil sat at her station surrounded by screens showing swarm communication patterns. She was an AI warfare officer, trained to hack and disrupt enemy systems. But the swarm didn't use computers. They used bioelectric signals, organic neural networks that thought as one mind. That was fine. Isil could work with that. Captain, I'm detecting communication patterns in the swarm network. They're coordinating through the nexus. If I can inject false signals, I might be able to confuse them. Do it, Tai-Ho ordered. Isil's fingers flew across her keyboard. She had studied swarm biology for months, learned how they communicated, how they thought. Now she crafted false signals, confusion protocols that made swarm ships think their allies were enemies. On the screens, the effect was immediate. Swarm ships began firing on each other. Their perfect coordination fractured into chaos. It's working, G1 said. Swarm efficiency is down by 30%. Major Wubin stood in the Indomitable's hangar bay, checking his armor one last time. He commanded the Marine Assault Force, 200 men and women trained for boarding actions. Behind him, his troops were loading into assault shuttles. Major, this is the captain. We've identified a weak point in the nexus structure. We're sending coordinates. I need your Marines to go in there and plant charges. Can you do it? Wubin smiled inside his helmet. Sir, we're Marines. The difficult we do immediately. The impossible takes a few minutes longer. We're on it. The assault shuttles launched from the Indomitable's belly, diving toward the nexus. They flew through walls of fire, shields glowing as they absorbed hit after hit. One shuttle exploded, taking 12 Marines with it. The rest kept going. They crashed through the nexus's outer membrane, literally drilling through living tissue to reach the interior. The shuttles landed in a massive chamber that pulsed with organic machinery. The Marines poured out, weapons ready, spread out. Plant charges on anything that looks important, Wubin ordered. The chamber was filled with swarm creatures. Not ships, but ground troops. Things with too many legs and mouths full of teeth. They screeched and charged at the human Marines. Wubin raised his plasma rifle and fired. The first creature exploded. Remember your training. Aim for the central mass. Keep moving! The Marines fought like a well-oiled machine. They moved in pairs, covering each other, firing with precision that came from years of training. Human weapons tore through swarm creatures like paper. Human armor shrugged off acid and claws. One Marine went down, her armor breached. 2 others pulled her back while the rest kept firing. They never stopped moving forward. They had a mission and nothing would stop them. Wubin reached a massive column that seemed to be a neural conduit. He attached a charge and armed it. Charges placed! All teams report. One by one, his Marines confirmed. 30 charges, all armed, all ready to blow. Extraction in 60 seconds. Move, people, move. The Marines ran back to their shuttles, fighting every step of the way. Behind them, swarm creatures poured into the chamber. The shuttles lifted off just as the charges detonated. The explosion ripped through the Nexus's interior, severing neural pathways and causing the structure to shudder. On the Indomitable's bridge, sensors showed the damage. Captain, the Nexus is losing coordination. The swarm ships are becoming disorganized. Coalition fleet is arriving. Another officer called out. Through the warp points, Coalition ships began appearing. Not as fast or as precise as human jumps, but they made it. 300 ships added their firepower to the battle. The space around the Nexus became a storm of weapons fire. Admiral Varric looked at the massive human ships fighting alongside his own. It felt right somehow, like this was how it was always meant to be. Different species, different technologies, but the same purpose: survival, protection, hope. All Coalition ships target the Nexus surface, coordinate with human targeting data. Hit them where it hurts. Commander G1 saw the opportunity. The Nexus was wounded, confused, its coordination failing. But it was still dangerous. Captain, I'm detecting a massive power buildup in the Nexus core. I think it's preparing some kind of weapon. How big? Big enough to destroy the entire fleet. We have maybe 5 minutes. Tejo looked at the Nexus on his screen. They had come this far. They had proven humanity was real. They had fought alongside the Coalition. But it wasn't over yet. The monster still had teeth. We need to go deeper. We need to hit the core directly. Sir, our shields are at 40%. If we go in there, we might not come out. I know, but if we don't, everyone dies. Not just us, the Coalition, Viridian Prime. Millions of people who deserve a chance to live. Tejo looked at his crew. This is what we came here for. This is what it means to be human. We stand between the innocent and harm no matter the cost. Commander Jiwan met his eyes and nodded. Then let's finish this. Engineering, give us everything you've got. Helm, plot a course into the Nexus core. Sir, there's no way to plot that course. We'll be flying blind through organic structures. Then we'll make our own path. All forward weapons, continuous fire. We're going in. The Indomitable turned toward the Nexus. Its engines flared bright blue, brighter than before. Engineer Nari had pushed the reactor to 100%. The ship began to accelerate, weapons blazing, literally carving a tunnel through the living structure of the Nexus. Lieutenant Doyen saw what the Indomitable was doing. Raptor Squadron, form up on the Indomitable. We're escorting her in. Protect her flanks. 20 fighters joined the capital ship as it dove into the Nexus. Behind them, the other 7 human ships closed ranks, holding off the swarm, and around them all, the Coalition fleet fought with renewed hope. The battle for Viridian Prime had become a battle for the future. And at the center of it all, one human ship pushed deeper into the enemy's heart, refusing to stop, refusing to fail, proving that the legends had been too modest. Humanity had returned. And they were glorious. The Indomitable carved through the Nexus like a knife through flesh. Organic walls shattered under plasma fire. Bio-corridors collapsed as the ship forced its way deeper. On the bridge, every screen showed damage reports and warnings. The shields were failing. Hull breaches were spreading. But they kept going, shields at 20%. Someone shouted. Captain Taiho gripped his chair as the ship shook. Keep firing! We're not stopping now. Commander Jiwan watched the path ahead. The Nexus was massive, and they were still only a fraction of the way to the core. Captain, at this rate, we'll run out of power before we reach the target. Then we'll find more power. Nari, talk to me. What can you give me? In the engine room, Engineer Nari was fighting her own battle. The reactor was screaming, pushed far beyond its design limits. Coolant was leaking, power conduits were melting, alarms were ringing everywhere. Her team worked frantically, patching systems that were failing faster than they could fix them. Captain, the reactor is at 110%. We're in the red zone. I can give you maybe 10 more minutes at this power level before we have a meltdown. We need 15 minutes to reach the core. Nari looked at the reactor. She had built this machine with her own hands. She knew every circuit, every coolant line, every power junction. She also knew what would happen if she pushed it too far. The reactor would explode, taking the ship and everyone on it into nothing. But she also knew what would happen if they failed. The Nexus would destroy the fleet. Millions would die. The Coalition would fall, and humanity's return would end in failure. I can give you 15 minutes, Nari said quietly, but I'll need to manually control the reactor. The automatic systems can't handle this. I'll have to stay here. Nari, if you stay there and something goes wrong, I know, Captain, but someone has to do it. And I'm the best engineer on this ship. This is my reactor. Let me do my job. Taiho closed his eyes for a moment. This was the cost of command. The weight of sending people to their deaths. Do what you have to do, and Nari, thank you. Just make it count, sir. Make sure this matters. Nari dismissed her team, ordering them to evacuate the engine room. Then she was alone with her reactor, her hands on the manual controls, feeding power to the ship 1 percentage point at a time. The heat was intense. Her suit's cooling system was struggling, but she kept going. Outside the ship, Lieutenant Doyen and his squadron fought a desperate battle. The Nexus had sent everything it had against the Indomitable. Bioships poured out of side chambers, trying to stop the human vessel before it reached the core. Doyen's fighters were all that stood between them and their target. Raptor 7 is hit. I'm losing power. Eject, 7. Eject now. Negative, Raptor Leader. My ejection system is damaged. I'm going to make this count. Tell my family I died doing something that mattered. Doyun watched helplessly as Raptor 7 turned toward a cluster of swarm ships and accelerated. The fighter's reactor overloaded and the explosion took out 6 enemy vessels. Rest easy, 7. Doyen whispered. You made it count. There were 15 fighters left now. Then 14 as another took critical damage and went down. Then 13. They were dying one by one, but they bought the indomitable precious seconds with each sacrifice. Inside the Nexus, Major Wubin and his Marines were fighting their way toward a secondary objective. Dr. Yunji had detected something during her scans, a biological chamber that might hold information about the swarm's origins. If they could reach it, they might learn something crucial. Contact front, one Marine shouted. Swarm creatures flooded the corridor. Wubin and his troops formed a line and held it. Plasma rifles fired in controlled bursts. Grenades exploded. Marines fell, but the line held. We're 50 meters from the target, Wubin shouted over the noise. Keep pushing! They reached the chamber, and what they found inside stopped them cold. The room was filled with biological pods, and inside each pod was a creature that looked almost peaceful, almost innocent. These weren't soldiers. These were civilians. Children, maybe, in whatever way the swarm understood family. Dr. Yunji had come with the Marines, and now she scanned the pods urgently. Major, I'm reading the biological data. The swarm. They're not naturally aggressive. They're running from something. Something in dark space, something ancient and terrible. They came here because they're refugees. Refugees that are killing millions, Wubin said grimly. Yes, but they don't see it that way. To them, this is survival. They don't have a concept of peaceful coexistence. Their biology doesn't allow it. They can only consume or be consumed. Can we reason with them? No, their neural structure is too different. But Major, if we destroy the Nexus, these pods, these children or whatever they are, they'll die too. Wubin felt the weight of that knowledge settle on his shoulders. War was never clean. Victory was never pure. There were always costs, always innocents caught in the crossfire. But if he didn't complete his mission, the coalition would fall. Humanity's return would end in blood. More children, human and alien alike, would die. We do what we came to do, Wubin said, his voice heavy. We save the lives we can save. But mark these coordinates. When this is over, if we survive, we'll tell the galaxy what we found. They deserve to know the truth. On the Indomitables bridge, they were approaching the core. The screen showed a massive chamber ahead, pulsing with bioelectric energy. This was the brain of the Nexus, the thing that coordinated the entire swarm. All weapons, target that structure, Commander Jiwan ordered. Shields at 5%, the defensive officer called out. We're taking fire from all sides. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Specialist Isil was still at her station, still trying to disrupt swarm communications. But now she saw something else. The Nexus was adapting to her intrusions. It was learning, and it had just figured out how to strike back. A surge of bioelectric energy came through her console. The systems tried to filter it, but it was too strong. Isil felt the shock run through her body. Her screens exploded. Smoke filled her station. Isil, someone shouted. She tried to stand but couldn't. Her body wasn't responding right. She could feel her heart beating irregularly. The shock had been too much. Captain, she gasped. The Nexus. It knows we're here. It's preparing something. A final weapon. You have maybe 2 minutes before it fires. Medical team to the bridge, Tejo ordered. Isil, stay with us. No time, she whispered. But I can do one more thing. I can upload a virus into their network. It will kill the coordination completely, but I'll need to make a direct connection. And it will, she coughed, tasted blood. It will kill me. Isil, no. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Captain. This is what I trained for. Let me do this. Let me save everyone. Before anyone could stop her, Isil grabbed a cable and plugged it directly into her neural interface. Her eyes went wide as the swarm network flooded into her mind. She saw everything. Millions of thoughts, millions of voices, all screaming at once. And underneath it all, she saw the terror. The swarm was afraid. Always afraid, I'm sorry, Isil whispered to the swarm mind. Then she uploaded the virus. The swarm network shattered like glass. Every bioship, every creature, every part of the Nexus suddenly lost coordination. They thrashed wildly, attacking anything near them, unable to understand what was happening. And Isil, her mind still connected, felt every death like it was her own. Then she felt nothing at all. In the engine room, alarms were screaming. The reactor was past its breaking point. Nari could see the containment field starting to fail. She had minutes left, maybe less, but the Indomitable had reached the core. They were firing everything they had into the Nexus's brain. "Captain, this is engineering. The reactor is going critical. I can't hold it much longer." "We're almost there, Nari, just a few more seconds." "I don't have seconds, sir. The containment is failing. I'm going to try to route the explosion through the exhaust ports. It might buy you time to get clear. Nari, evacuate now." "That's an order." "Sorry, sir. I can't hear you." "Must be the interference." Nari smiled through tears. She thought about her family back on Earth. Her mother would be proud. She had done her duty. "Tell them." "Tell them I held the line. The reactor containment failed." Nari did the only thing she could. She embraced the reactor core, using her own body to direct the explosion away from the ship's critical systems. The engine room erupted in white light. The Indomitable shuddered but held together. The ship's final salvo slammed into the Nexus core just as the structure was trying to fire its doomsday weapon. The massive chamber exploded from within. Energy cascaded through the Nexus's neural pathways. The structure began to tear itself apart. "All ships, retreat," Captain Taiho ordered, his voice breaking. "The Nexus is collapsing." "Get clear now." The Indomitable turned and fired its emergency thrusters. The ship was damaged, shields were gone, half the systems were offline. But it moved. Lieutenant Doyen and the surviving fighters formed up around it, protecting it as it fled. Behind them, the Nexus imploded. The massive structure folded in on itself, and then exploded outward in a wave of organic debris and energy. Thousands of swarm ships, now without coordination, simply drifted in space, confused and helpless. The Coalition fleet began firing on the scattered swarm ships. Without the Nexus, they were easy targets. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Viridian Prime. The city was still standing and the sky was clear for the first time in months. No swarm ships darkened the horizon. No alarms warned of incoming attacks. The war was over, but the scars remained. Captain Taiho stood in the hospital wing of the Indomitable, looking at the rows of beds. Some held Coalition wounded, some held humans. The medical teams worked together now, sharing knowledge, learning from each other. Human medicine was more advanced, but Coalition doctors knew species that humans had never met. Together, they saved lives that would have been lost before. Lieutenant Doyen walked past, his arm in a sling. He had survived the battle, but barely. His fighter had taken a hit that should have killed him. Only his skill and a lot of luck had brought him home. Now he was heading to the training center where Coalition pilots were waiting to learn from him. "Lieutenant," Taiho called out. "How are the students?" Doyen grinned. "Eager, sir. Very eager. Yesterday I showed them the neural interface systems. They couldn't believe we fly with our minds. One of them actually cried when she realized what it meant. Said it was like magic. It's not magic. It's just technology. To them it might as well be magic. We're 300 years ahead of them, Captain. But they're learning fast. Give them a year and they'll be flying circles around most of our pilots." Taiho smiled. That was good. The Coalition needed to be strong. The swarm was broken, but Major Wubin's discovery weighed on everyone. The swarm had been running from something. Something worse was out there in the dark. Commander Jiwon found him an hour later. She had been promoted to captain and given command of a new ship, the UNS Defiant, a joint construction combining human and Coalition technology. The first of many such vessels being built in the orbital shipyards above Viridian Prime. "Captain Taiho, the ceremony is in 1 hour. You should get ready." Taiho looked down at his uniform. It had been cleaned and pressed, but he could still see the scorch marks from the battle. He had decided to keep them. They were reminders of what had been lost and what had been saved. "I'll be there." The memorial had been built in the center of Viridian Prime's capital city. It was a simple structure made of black stone from Earth and white crystal from the Tal Shira homeworld. On its surface were carved the names of everyone who had died in the battle, human and Coalition alike. 247 human names, 8,300 Coalition names. At the top, in letters that caught the sunlight, were 3 names that burned brighter than the others. Engineer Nari Specialist Ezeal Pilot Kang, Raptor 7. Ambassador Hana stood before the memorial, reading the names through tears. She had watched these people fight. She had watched them die. They had been strangers to the Coalition 3 weeks ago. Now they were heroes. Admiral Varric stood beside her, his 4 eyes also wet. "I told my children the stories when they were young. Tales of the Earthborn who walked between stars, warriors who fought like demons and bled red. I thought they were just stories." "They were never just stories," Hana said. They were memories. Memories that waited 10,000 years to become real again. The ceremony began as the sun reached its highest point. Every ship in orbit fired a single shot into space, the energy beams forming a column of light that rose from the memorial to the stars. The crowd stood in silence, humans and aliens together, mourning together, hoping together. Captain Taiho stepped forward to speak. "We came here as legends," he said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "We came here as ghosts from the past. But your courage made us real again. You fought when there was no hope. You stood when anyone else would have run. You earned our help. And in helping you, we remembered who we are." He paused, looking at the names on the memorial. "These people died so that others could live. That is the greatest thing anyone can do. Give their life so that life continues. We will remember them. Earth will remember them, and the stars will remember them." Admiral Varric spoke next. "The Coalition has voted. Humanity is now the 13th member of the Galactic Coalition, with full rights, full representation, and full partnership. We were 12 species standing together. Now we are 13, and we are stronger for it." The crowd erupted in applause. Humans and aliens embraced. Children waved flags showing Earth alongside the other Coalition worlds. It was a new beginning. Later that evening, in the Coalition Council chambers, the real work began. Dr. Yunji presented her findings about the swarm. She showed the biological scans, the recordings from Major Wubin's mission, the evidence that the swarm had been refugees fleeing something terrible. "What could make the swarm run?" one council member asked. Dr. Yunji pulled up star charts showing the area of space the swarm had come from. "We don't know, but our long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from that region. Something is out there. Something old." Captain Jiwan, now representing the human fleet, spoke up. "Earth detected these readings 200 years ago. That's why we stayed hidden. We needed time to prepare. To build ships, to develop weapons, to become strong enough to face whatever is coming. And are you strong enough now?" Admiral Varric asked. "Alone? No, but together? Maybe. That's why we revealed ourselves. The threat we detected is too big for any one species. It's too big for humanity alone. It requires all of us working together." The council chamber fell silent as this information settled. They had just survived one threat. Now they learned there was something worse waiting. "How much time do we have?" someone asked. Commander Kyung, representing Earth Command, stood. "Our best estimates suggest 5 to 10 years before whatever is out there reaches Coalition space. Maybe less. We need to use that time wisely. We need to build defenses, create new ships, train our forces together. The Coalition survived for 3,000 years through peace. Now you'll need to learn war from those who know it best." "From humanity," Varric said. "Yes. We've been preparing for this for 2 centuries. Let us share what we know. Let us teach you what we've learned. Not because we think you're weak, but because we're stronger together than apart." Over the following weeks, the work began. Coalition shipyards started building human-designed vessels. Coalition engineers learned human technology. Human scientists studied Coalition biology and medicine. And in the training facilities, the real transformation happened. Lieutenant Doyen stood in front of a class of 50 Coalition pilots. They came from 7 different species, each with their own way of thinking, their own strengths. He was teaching them to fly like humans, to think like humans, to fight like humans. "Flying isn't just about the ship," he told them. "It's about the pilot. Your ship is an extension of your body. When you think about turning, your ship turns. When you think about firing, your ship fires. There's no delay, no gap between thought and action. That's what makes human pilots dangerous. We don't fly our ships, we become our ships." One pilot, a young Talshira female, raised her hand. "But Lieutenant, we've been training for weeks and I still can't make it work. The neural interface doesn't respond to my thoughts." Doyen walked over to her. "That's because you're trying too hard. You're thinking about thinking. Stop that, just feel it. Trust yourself." He helped her into a training simulator and activated the neural interface. "Now don't think about flying. Just imagine where you want to go. See it in your mind." The pilot closed her 3 eyes and tried. The simulator jerked, stopped, jerked again. Then suddenly, smoothly, it began to move. Her eyes opened in wonder. "I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it." "Yes, you are. And in a few months, you'll be doing it better than me, because you have instincts I don't have. You see dimensions I can't see. Together, we'll create something new. Something neither humans nor Talshira could do alone. That was the pattern repeating across Viridian Prime and dozens of other Coalition worlds. Humans teaching, Coalition learning, and both sides discovering that together, they were more than the sum of their parts. Major, Wubin trained Coalition ground forces in human combat techniques. Dr. Yunji worked with Coalition scientists on biological warfare countermeasures. Engineer teams from Earth and the Coalition worked side by side in the shipyards, creating vessels that combined the best of both. And Captain Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Defiant, looking at her crew. Half human, half Coalition. Her first officer was Admiral Varric's son, a young Tal Shira male who had requested the assignment specifically. Why did you want to serve on a human ship? Jiwan had asked him during his interview. Because I grew up on stories of your people, he had answered. And I want to be part of the new stories, the ones we write together. Now 3 months after the battle, the Defiant was ready for its first mission. Long-range reconnaissance into the region where the swarm had come from. They needed to know what was out there. They needed to prepare. Captain Taiho came to see them off. He stood on the dock as the Defiant prepared to launch. Take care of her, Jiwan. She's more than a ship. She's a symbol. The first step toward whatever comes next. I know, sir. We won't let you down. I know you won't. You never have. The Defiant launched, its engines burning bright. It accelerated toward the edge of Coalition space, toward the unknown. Its name in both human and Tal Shira script. A ship from two worlds crewed by two peoples heading toward one future.